She had one child, one miracle, the only one her womb ever gave her. She loved deeply, trusted blindly, but the people closest to her, they carried secrets that would tear her world apart. If you've ever trusted someone like family, only to be stabbed by that same hand, this story will break your heart and heal it too. Watch till the end. Some truths only reveal themselves slowly. The city of Lagos never sleeps. Cars honking, children laughing, hawkers chasing moving buses like it's the Olympics, but inside one quiet estate, tucked away behind tall black gates, was the beautiful home of Mr. and Mrs. Collins, and their miracle child. The wife, Mrs. Jane Collins, the woman who had everything. She had a fine man, money in abundance, and the kind of peace only people inside rich estates enjoy. But what most people didn't know was the pain that once lived in Jane's womb. Years ago, doctors told her she may never carry a child. Her tears could have filled the Lagos lagoon. Prayer camps, IVF, medications, fasting. She tried everything. Then, one quiet night, a miracle happened, and 9 months later, her daughter was born, tiny, warm, and crying like she came with fire in her lungs. She named her Miracle. Jane was a full-time mum, a soft woman, big-hearted, always smiling. She spent her days baking, arranging flowers, brushing Miracle's hair, and watching lifestyle shows on DSTV. Her husband, Collins, was the calm one, CEO of a top advertising company, a man that dressed like a model and spoke like a pastor. He adored his wife, worshipped his daughter. Even Miracle would shout, "Daddy's home!" and run like a track star whenever she heard his car horn. Their life, smooth, until the doctor said something that knocked the breath out of Jane. "Mrs. Collins, I'm sorry. The damage to your reproductive system is severe. You won't be able to carry another pregnancy again." Jane nodded, smiled. But when she got home, she locked herself in the bathroom and cried into her towel. Miracle became her entire world, her last bus stop, her one shot at motherhood. Next door lived a younger woman, Susan. She was the sweet neighbor, friendly, respectful, helpful. Jane adored her. In fact, she once told her husband, "If I ever had a younger sister, it would be Susan." Susan would often pop in and say, "Auntie Jane, good morning. Hope you've eaten." She played Ludo with Miracle, helped Jane fold laundry, even watched movies with them on Friday evenings. They were that close. What Jane didn't know was that sometimes love and betrayal walk on the same street, and you don't know which one you've welcomed into your house until it's too late. One weekend, Jane packed her small overnight bag, folded Miracle's clothes into a pink duffel, and prepared to travel to her mother's place in Ibadan. "Collins, don't forget to eat," she said playfully. He smiled. "I'm not a baby. I'll survive." She kissed him. Miracle jumped on his lap. "Daddy, be good." That evening, Susan noticed something strange. She had come to borrow Jane's blender but realized the gate was open and the car was gone. She walked in. There was Collins, on the couch, sweating like someone who just finished morning jogging inside the sun. Face pale, hands trembling. "Jesus, Uncle Collins, what's wrong?" He tried to speak, but his voice was weak. Fever had taken over. Susan didn't even think. She rushed to the kitchen, boiled hot water, searched for paracetamol, cooked light okra soup and simo. She helped him eat, helped him lie down, checked his temperature, sat beside him with a wet towel, and slowly, the fever began to leave. By 8 p.m. the house was quiet. The TV was on. Blood Ties was playing. Collins sat up and smiled faintly. "Thank you, Susan. I owe you." Susan smiled too. "You'd do the same for me." Then, silence. Not the peaceful kind, the one where air becomes heavy, where you know something is shifting but you can't stop it. Their eyes met. Seconds passed, then minutes, then their hands touched. Nobody pulled away. Then her head rested on his shoulder. One thing led to another, and just like that, the line they should never cross disappeared. That night something happened in that house. Something that would dig a grave for innocence and bury 3 lives inside. But the door stayed shut. The night stayed long. The next morning they woke up, half-dressed. The air was heavy. The guilt was loud. No words, just emotions, and regrets waiting to be born. Susan quickly got dressed and left. Sunday evening came. The Collins compound was quiet, except for the security man snoring beside the gate. Jane's car drove in. She stepped down, tired but smiling. Miracle ran inside like a happy goat that missed her playground. "Daddy!" But no answer. Jane walked in. Collins was sitting on the couch, eyes fixed on the TV, but he wasn't really watching. He wasn't blinking either. "Collins, are you okay?" Jane asked, kneeling beside him. He flinched like someone just caught doing something. Yeah, I'm fine. Just tired." She tilted her head. "You sure?" He nodded too fast. Jane didn't push. She kissed his forehead and went to unpack. But in her spirit, something didn't feel right. Collins barely touched his dinner. He kept checking his phone, then dropping it, then picking it again. That night, when Jane reached out to hold him in bed, he shifted, like her touch burned him. The next morning, Jane walked over to Susan's house to check on her. She knocked, waited, no answer. She knocked again. "Susan, it's Mio." Still silent. She peeped through the side window. She turned to the gateman. "Where's Madam Susan?" The man scratched his head. "She left since Saturday morning, in a small bag she carry." Jane raised a brow. "She told you where she went?" "No, Ma, but her face is like a person that has been crying. I even asked if she is okay. She just waved hand and left." Something inside Jane sank. What happened between Saturday morning and now? Days passed, then weeks. Collins became a shadow, always lost in thought, talking less, working more. One night, Jane touched his face. "Are you cheating on me?" His eyes widened. "What? No. How can you say that?" She nodded slowly. "Okay, then talk to me. Because this person you've become, I don't recognize him." He hugged her tightly. Too tightly. Then said nothing. The next day, Jane sat outside staring at the gate. She called Susan several times, but she didn't pick up. She remembered all the times Susan came bouncing in, all the laughter, the trust, the bond. Something happened, and it involved Susan. She just didn't know what yet. 3 weeks later, Susan came back. Her Uber dropped her in front of the estate. She wore a scarf and dark shades. She walked fast, head down. Jane saw her from the window and ran out. "Susan!" Susan stopped, but didn't turn. "Susan, where have you been? I've been worried sick." Susan turned slowly. Her lips trembled. "Jane, please, I can't talk right now." She walked past her into her house and locked the door. Jane stood frozen, confused and hurt. Some weeks later, Susan was feeling very sick. She went to the hospital for treatment. After tests, the doctor stepped in and asked, "Madam, congratulations. You're about 5 weeks pregnant." Susan sat up. "No, that can't be. It was just one time." Her throat tightened. "Please, don't let this pregnancy continue," she whispered. But she didn't know who to cry to, or what to do, so she called the only person who would understand. Collins was in his office, tapping his pen on the table. His phone rang. Susan. His heart stopped. He picked up. "Collins." Her voice cracked. "I'm pregnant." Silence. He dropped the pen. It rolled off the table. "No," he whispered. "Please come. I need to talk to you." That night, Collins met Susan in her living room. He didn't sit. She didn't talk much. "I already booked an appointment to remove it," she said. Collins stared at her. His lips moved, but words didn't come. After a while, he said, "Thank you. It's the right thing. I love my wife. This was a mistake. One big mistake." Susan looked at him. "You think I don't know that?" They both sat in silence, remembering how far they'd fallen. Just take me there on Friday, Susan finally said. I don't want to go alone. Collins nodded. Friday came. Jane woke up dizzy. Her head was hot. Her stomach felt like fire. Collins, please help me take Miracle to school. I'm not feeling strong. He paused, heart racing. Okay, he said, forcing a smile. Miracle wore her uniform, pink water bottle in hand, hair neatly packed. She hugged her mum and waved. Bye, Mummy. Collins picked Susan along the way. She sat at the back, silent, nervous. Miracle sat in front, singing to herself. As they approached the Lekki Ikoyi roundabout, a trailer lost control from the opposite lane. Collins tried to swerve, but it was too late. The car spun twice, slammed into the median. Then everything went black. Jane was sleeping when her phone rang. A strange number. She picked. Hello? Good morning, Ma. Are you the wife of Mr. Collins? Yes. Who is this? There's been an accident. Your husband and daughter were involved. Please come to Blessed Hospital Ikoyi immediately. Jane didn't remember how she got dressed. Her wrapper wasn't tied well. She didn't even comb her hair. The drive to Blessed Hospital felt like a nightmare in daylight. When she arrived, people were rushing around. Nurses, families crying, ambulances reversing. Everything felt loud. She ran inside. Please, my name is Jane Collins. My husband and daughter were in an accident. A nurse came out. Ma, please calm down. Come with me. Jane followed barefooted. Her shoe had cut somewhere outside and she didn't notice. The nurse stopped at a ward door. The child... The nurse paused. Jane's voice shook. What? What about my child? The nurse opened the door gently. Inside, a small body lay under white sheets. Still, cold, silent. It was Miracle. No, 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 no! Jane screamed. She fell to the ground, crawled on her knees, held her daughter's cold hand. My baby! My Miracle! Wake up now, please! Nurses tried to hold her. She slapped one, bit another. She rolled on the hospital floor, her wrapper scattered. She remembered the doctor's words from years ago. You won't be able to have another child. Her whole world tilted. Later they took her to another ward. There, on a hospital bed, surrounded by beeping machines, was Collins, pale, tubes in his nose, head bandaged. The doctor stepped forward. He's in a coma. We're doing our best. Jane stared at her husband. Her heart couldn't decide if it wanted to break or scream. As Jane walked out, weak and broken, she passed a familiar voice. Jane. She turned slowly. There, in another ward, was Susan, face bruised, arm bandaged. Jane's eyes narrowed. What are you doing here? Susan looked down. Jane stepped closer. What were you doing? In that car? Silence. Susan, talk now. Talk before I run mad. Susan burst into tears. I'm sorry, Jane. I didn't mean to... Jane screamed. You didn't mean what? Susan whispered, trembling. I didn't want it to happen. But that night, Collins and I... We made a mistake. Jane froze. Her voice dropped. What do you mean? Susan looked away, then whispered through tears. I'm pregnant. And it's his. The hospital hallway went silent. Even the nurses froze. Jane held her chest like her heart had stopped beating. You, she whispered, you slept with my husband? Susan nodded slowly, tears pouring down. Jane slapped her so hard, a nurse had to hold her back. You came into my house, ate my food, played with my daughter, and you were sleeping with my husband. I'm sorry, Susan sobbed. It happened once. It was a mistake. Mistake? My daughter is dead. My husband is unconscious. And you're pregnant. Jane turned around and ran out of the hospital. Jane opened the gate to her duplex. The compound was quiet. The grass was still wet from the rain. Inside the house, everything looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. She walked into Miracle's room. The bed was untouched, the teddy bear still sitting at the edge. Her portrait hung on the wall, smiling. Jane fell to her knees. She screamed. But this time, No sound came out. She lay on the floor, curled into herself like a child. The pain was too much. The next few weeks passed like shadows. Jane stopped eating. She didn't go to the hospital. She didn't talk to anyone. Her phone rang. She never picked. Collins was still in a coma. Susan was recovering. And Jane was emotionally buried beside her daughter. People came to visit. Church members, friends. She didn't speak. She just sat by Miracle's bed. Every day. One night, Susan came to the house. She stood by the gate. She didn't knock. She just looked up at the windows, holding her stomach, and wept. Inside, Jane sat in the dark, tears quietly falling down her cheeks, and from the silence, you could tell, the woman she used to be was gone. 2 months passed. The house was still. The only sound was the slow tick of the clock on the hallway wall. Jane no longer cried every day. Now she just sat, blank, still breathing, but no longer alive. She packed up Miracle's room, not out of strength, out of surrender. She folded her little socks, placed her drawings in a box, touched her portrait, then turned it to face the wall. At the hospital, beeping machines surrounded Collins. His chest rose, then his eyes opened. The nurse gasped, "Doctor, he's awake!" A few hours later, he was stable, confused, but conscious. "Where's my daughter?" he asked faintly. "She was with me. My little girl. Where is she?" The nurses exchanged glances. "Your wife will explain," the doctor said gently. 3 days later, he was discharged. As the gate opened and he stepped into the compound, the silence hit him like thunder. The flowers at the entrance were wilted. No laughter, no cartoons blaring from the sitting room, no tiny shoes scattered by the stairs. He walked inside. "Jane?" he called out. No answer. He walked up to Miracle's room. The door creaked open. It was empty. The pink curtains were gone. Her toys boxed up. Her portrait missing. He began to sweat, panicked. He rushed to their bedroom. Jane was by the window, sitting still, back turned. He froze in the doorway. "Jane," he said softly. She didn't move. He stepped closer. "Where's Miracle? I've been asking. The doctors said you'd tell me." No answer. "Where's my daughter?" he asked again, voice trembling. She finally turned around. Her eyes were swollen, dry from too many days of crying, her lips pale, her face broken. "You want to know where Miracle is?" she said, her voice cold and cracked. Collins nodded quickly. "Yes, where is she? Why isn't she home? Did she get injured?" Jane stood up slowly, like something heavy was pressing on her shoulders. "She's gone, Collins." "What?" "She's dead." His knees buckled. No, that's not possible." "She died in that car, Collins," she said, voice shaking. "The same car you used to carry your mistress, the same car that was supposed to take her to school." Collins staggered backwards. What are you talking about?" Jane stepped forward now, eyes sharp with pain. "Susan, don't pretend." His mouth opened slightly, his face drained of all color. "Yes," Jane said bitterly. "I know. She told me everything." Collins dropped to the floor, palms on his head. "You took her from me," Jane said, her voice rising. "Both of you. The only person that ever called me Mum. The only person my womb ever gave me." He began to cry. "It was a mistake, Jane. Please." She stared at him with fire in her eyes. "You should have died, Collins. Not her." He looked up at her, broken. "Don't say that. Why not? You betrayed me. You carried another woman, my so-called sister, in your car and dragged my daughter into your sin. And now she's gone." She turned her back on him, voice now lower, but deadlier. "She's gone, and I'm still here, with you." He crawled to her feet, held her legs, sobbing. "Please, Jane." But she didn't move. She didn't cry. She just stared at the wall, as if she was looking at a future that no longer existed. The days after that confrontation moved slowly. Too slow, like time itself didn't want to move forward, as if it was afraid of what came next. Collins stayed in the guest room, not because Jane told him to, but because the silence had become unbearable. Every morning he'd walk to her door, stand there, then knock, softly. "Jane, please, just talk to me. Let me explain." Silence. No footsteps, no creaking doorknob, just silence. Some days he left notes by the door. Some days he dropped groceries even though the fridge was still full. Once he bought her a tiny white teddy bear, the kind Miracle used to hug while sleeping. He placed it on the doorstep. The next morning it was gone, but the door never opened. Inside, Jane moved like a shadow. She swept, cooked, bathed, slept, all in silence. Even her phone, always on silent. She turned off the doorbell, closed the curtains, blocked the world. Susan called, every day. Jane didn't pick. Then Susan started sending voice notes, long ones. "Auntie Jane, please. I don't know how to live with myself. I dream of her every night." Still, no reply. Susan even came to the gate one day. She stood there under the sun, crying like a child. "I'm sorry, Jane. I will carry this guilt for the rest of my life. Please, just tell me what to do. Let me make it right." The security guard asked Jane if she wanted to let her in. She said nothing. She just closed the window and walked away. Even the house began to echo differently. The laughter was gone. No tiny feet running up the stairs. No small voice asking, "Mummy, can I have juice?" Just echoes. Collins would sometimes break down by the compound wall. He'd kneel and whisper prayers, loud ones. "God, please, return peace to this home. Don't let it end like this. Don't let me lose her too." Jane would hear him from inside, but her heart had gone numb. Because the pain of betrayal doesn't come with bruises. It comes with memories you can't throw away. It comes with a face you used to trust, now feeling like a stranger. 3 full weeks passed, no words, not a single one exchanged between Jane and Collins. Yet every morning he still showed up at her door, still knocked, still begged, and still... She said nothing, because when someone takes away the only part of you that felt alive, sometimes even breathing feels like punishment. It was a Thursday morning. Jane stood in the kitchen, boiling water for tea, but her hands were shaking. She had barely slept. Her eyes were dry, her lips cracked. She hadn't spoken a full sentence in days. The quietness in the house was starting to echo inside her head. She walked to the living room, sat on the couch, the same couch where Miracle once danced in her school socks, pretending to be a ballerina, the same spot where she used to beg for more cartoons after bedtime. Jane looked at the rug, still stained with grape juice from that one morning Miracle spilled her cup. She touched it, and something inside her cracked. She stood up slowly, then walked upstairs, straight to the room she had packed up. Miracle's room. She hadn't entered it since the night she boxed her daughter's things. Her hand hovered over the doorknob. She turned it. The room smelled like old perfume and silence. A single pink shoe sat in the corner, forgotten. Jane walked in, knees wobbling. Then she saw the wall, the one where Miracle used to stick her drawing papers with cello tape. One was still there, faded. A drawing of their family, Jane, Collins, and a smiling stick-figure girl in the middle with the word "Mummy's best friend" written above her. Jane touched it, and broke. The tears came like a flood, violent, loud, from the depth of her belly. She dropped to the floor, holding her chest like her heart was being ripped open. She screamed, not a name, not a word, just pain. The type that doesn't care who hears it, the type that silences years of strength in one loud, heartbreaking sob. Downstairs, Collins heard her. He ran up the stairs and burst into the room. He saw her on the floor, curled up in Miracle's blanket, shaking uncontrollably. "Jane!" He rushed to her, tried to touch her. "Don't touch me," she shouted, pushing him away. "Don't you dare touch me!" He knelt, crying. "I'm sorry, please. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." She looked up at him, face soaked in tears. "You don't get to be sorry. Not after what you've taken from me. You and Susan, you didn't just betray me, you killed me." He shook his head, crying harder. "I wish I could take it back. I wish it was me instead of her." Jane stood up slowly. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. "You should have died, Collins," she whispered. "You should have died, not Miracle." And she walked past him, out of the room, out of his reach, out of whatever was left between them. That night, Collins slept outside. Rain fell, and Jane didn't hear it, because her tears were louder than the storm. 6 months later, in a quiet private hospital in Ikoyi, Susan gave birth. It was a girl. She held the child for only a few seconds before breaking into tears. "I don't want to name her," she whispered. The nurse looked confused. "You don't want to?" Susan shook her head. "I don't deserve that right." The baby was perfect. Tiny fingers, soft cheeks, eyes like Jane's daughter. She wept and wept, not from pain, but because she knew this child carried a story soaked in sin. Collins cooked dinner for Jane, cleaned the kitchen, sent flowers, brought her favorite puff-puff from the estate vendor. Nothing worked. She'd eat but not speak, she'd sleep but not beside him. Collins was walking through the house like a ghost, looking for forgiveness. But Jane had buried her mercy in the same place she buried her daughter. One Sunday morning, Jane was watering the plants in the front yard, for the first time in months. Then she heard footsteps. She turned. Susan, holding a baby wrapped in pink cloth. Jane froze. Susan knelt immediately, right there on the sandy pavement. "Auntie Jane," she said, trembling, "I know I've lost the right to even say your name." Jane said nothing. Tears dropped onto the baby's head. "I didn't come here to defend myself or explain. I just came to say this child, this baby, isn't mine, not really." Jane stepped back slightly. Susan continued. "She's a product of pain, of betrayal, but also a second chance. And I can't raise her." Jane's eyes widened. "What are you saying?" "I want you to take her." Inside the living room, Jane stared at the baby on her couch. Susan stood awkwardly at the corner, holding her bag. The baby cooed softly, unaware of the storm her existence was born into. "I don't hate the child," Jane finally said. "I hate the way she got here." Susan nodded. "I understand. I hate what you both did to me. How you murdered my peace." Tears were falling again. Jane hadn't cried in weeks. "But," she looked at the baby, "I also know what it feels like to want something so badly and be told it'll never happen again." She picked up the baby slowly, and for the first time in a long time, her arms didn't feel empty. Susan walked to the door holding her handbag, her face stained with quiet tears. "I'll never forgive myself," she said. "I don't expect you to either." She turned and left without another word. The gate clicked shut. Jane sat on the couch holding the baby girl. The child slept, but Jane's eyes were wide open. She kissed the baby's forehead, then whispered, "Your name is not mistake. Your name is hope." That night, Collins stood at the door. Jane was holding Hope. "Can I hold her?" he asked softly. Jane stood up, gave him the child. He kissed her forehead, rocked her slowly. "I'm sorry, Jane, for everything. Please." Jane looked at him. Her voice was calm, final. "I'll raise this child, but not with you." She turned and walked away, leaving Collins standing there, holding a child, but losing a wife. It had been 4 months. Jane now woke up earlier than usual, not to rush Miracle to school, but to feed Hope. The tiny child, born from chaos, now slept peacefully in a crib near her bed. The house was quieter. There were no cartoons playing, no shoes scattered by the door, no Miracle singing off-key in the bathroom, just Jane and this new child, and the sound of time moving forward. Collins still lived in the guest room. Jane allowed it, but barely spoke to him. He came out in the mornings to greet them, played with the child sometimes, helped with small errands, but the gap between them, still wide, still painful. Every time he looked into Jane's eyes, he saw the version of himself he wanted to forget, the version that ruined everything. One day he dropped his car key on the table and said, "If you ever decide to move on, I'll understand." Jane nodded, not a word, and he walked out. Meanwhile, far away in Asaba, Susan had started working in a small pharmacy. Quiet, low profile, new people, no past. She kept a framed photo of her baby girl beside her bed, a picture she took before handing her over. Every night before she slept, she prayed the same prayer. "Lord, let her be loved. Let her grow up not knowing the sin that brought her here." Then she'd cry, not loudly, just enough for the pillow to soak. One evening, Jane opened a small leather-bound book, her old journal. She flipped through pages from the past, writings filled with dreams, of motherhood, of peace, of a perfect life. She turned to a fresh page and wrote, "My name is Jane. I am a mother. I have buried a child. I have buried a marriage, but I have not buried myself. I choose to live, not for the pain I've felt, but for the hope I now carry in my arms." She closed the journal and smiled. A real, soft smile. Thank you for following Jane's story. If this touched your heart, please like, comment, and share it with someone who's healing from betrayal, grief, or heartbreak. Remember, sometimes strength doesn't look like revenge. Sometimes it looks like a woman holding a baby and choosing to live again. Subscribe to hear more stories like this, real, raw, and rooted in African truth.